Hi, my name is Karen Holmes. I'm the founder and director of the World Peace Organization for the One World Government. I just saw in the news this morning that the Ukrainian government are concerned about the technological aspect of the Ukrainian government is concerned about Chernobyl and them discovering that there is evidence that there's a hot spot in Chernobyl, in that nuclear power plant that was had the accident, one of the worst accidents in the world for nuclear power. At their energy facility. The article also said that Fukushima, they're concerned about a similar event occurring. The possibility that as the neutrino count is, I'm not an expert on this at all, but I wanted to talk about as the count is rising, that it could be another accident, and that this is something that has always been there. I wanted to talk about, since I'm not an expert on that, but I do know things that other people don't know about nuclear power, and that's why I wanted to talk about it today. When you look at nuclear power, when you look at technology, people are coming up with plans, and they have the potential to create a great deal of wealth, a great deal of mankind, progress for mankind. The only problem with it is that in my organization, I'm calling for technology review. And now I understand the planning process. I understand how, as I have a plan, let's say a technology plan. Actually, I have several technology plans that are innovative. Also, I'm introducing a free power source invention. I'm introducing the unified field theory. I'm introducing information on how to transition mankind out of oil-based thinking into a different idea. So let's say that I'll just use our chemical formula that we haven't figured out yet. This is something. So let's say that the oil-based nations, for example, would be very unhappy to let go of their oil because they're running out of it. It's running out. And when you look at the number of cars and airplanes and everything, how many people use all of that stuff all the time, the population is so big around the world now that it's going to run out. How do you take a country and transition it from dependence on that to something else? What about Saudi Arabia or the Arabian nations that whose economy is based on that? These are the kind of things that you have to address with when new technology comes out, is the planning process, and how do you deal with the glitches of that, like Chernobyl or Fukushima starting to the accidents there that have just released devastation there, and they're coming back, and now they're going. How about all of the effects of when the meltdown occurred in Fukushima, and then from the earthquake and the tsunami, and pushing all that stuff out into the ocean. I live just a couple miles, less than a mile from the ocean that direction, and in fact I can see it by just walking a few feet one direction. I can look out and see the ocean. So I understand. I live on the Oregon coast, and we have had stuff wash up after the Fukushima on our shores after Fukushima. So we've seen the effects. We were worried about the radiation coming in the wind coming from that direction because our storms come from that direction. Okay, with technology, there has to be a sense of technology review. When people come up with a plan, the plan has to address all of the effects of this and already resolve how you're going to deal with them as part of the planning process. You have to do it all. When you come up with a plan, you have to do this all on the mental level first. And like I said, I understand the idea of the planning process because I have to address all these issues as part of the plan for world peace. So we're calling for technology review. We're opening ideas up for debate. I'm opening the ideas up for debate so that everybody can be part of this idea and they can help us to understand what kind of objections there are. Because if there are any objections, those objections have to be resolved before it can be accepted. So when I say like, share, and subscribe and open it up to debate with your families, I'm dead serious because before anything happens related to this plan, we need to have it all talked out and addressed. And if I can't see from my perspective all the solutions, people will have to tell me what the problems are, and then we have to work them out before it will be accepted. And this is what should have been done before like nuclear power had been in result. So if nuclear power came about as a result of World War II and people were saying, well, we have to come up with this super weapon to stop the Japanese from attacking, they're very powerful. We have to stop them at any cost. What did we actually unleash? What happened with that? Now, if I were talking, if this were something where we were going to address this on a mental basis, what would happen if it was a secret government thing, a plan that they were going to solve this problem with a secret weapon? You see, if they were talking about nuclear power before World War II, see, what happens is with the planning process, a sense of, you have like the idea of world peace in the middle. You have international relations in the middle. You have how everything fits together like the earth. The core of it is the earth. Okay? So imagine that every plan that does one thing affects everything else. Okay. So when you introduce an idea on one place, it affects every place else. So everything has to be based on cultural review. It has to be placed on this idea where one person can stop it from happening. The same thing happened with the American Revolution and the Constitution when Patrick Henry stood up and said, no, we have to also address, the Constitution was ready to be signed. No, we have to address the rights of the individual. Okay, we've left this out. We have federal rights, states' rights. Now we have to address the rights of the individual, and that's when the Bill of Rights came about. They had to continue on because one person stood up in protest that, no, this isn't done yet. We have to deal with this. Okay, what happens with technology review is that people know something. Everybody knows something. Everybody is aware of something. If somebody, the conspiracy theorist knows something, because from their perspective, somehow an idea was introduced into this whole idea to say that we are going to push it through because we need to do this. Okay, what would happen if before World War II happened? So basically what it does is it creates a sense of technology is actually taking this idea and looking at it from opposite poles. A sense of duality is formed. You have technology that's used as a tool and technology that's used as a weapon. So when you're dealing with a plan, you have to look at the idea of using it as a tool, but also using it as a weapon and security issues related to that idea. And that's something that I have to deal with in my plan as I address the planning process related to world peace. This is the planning process, and you love it or you hate it, and you love it, hate, it becomes a love-hate relationship. It's a sense of duality too as you go through and you work through all of these ideas. If you are talking about technology review related to nuclear power, we have to ban nuclear power, but there is this huge, now because that has not been addressed, we have this huge problem related to that, and it is bigger than you can possibly imagine because nuclear power has to be banned because of our scientists didn't understand at that time when they introduced it that universal law exists. And that they're just starting to figure out that there is something else there that is forcing it to be banned. How about the same thing is happening with the rare earth minerals and the use? What would happen if you remove the minerals from the earth, from the oceans, and the oceans work as a battery? And by removing them, when you remove the electrolytes from the oceans store the energy from the sun, and then through the energy lines that go through the earth, it's the heat. It basically goes out. It's a weather manufacturer, and because of the heat and the different temperatures and such. But what happens if you remove all the minerals, the electrolytes from a battery, and you continue to put energy into it, solar energy? It will get hot. So by coming up with a way to this new technology has the capacity to wipe life off the planet. So what was supposed to be used as a way to solve a problem is an actual existential threat for the planet. We have to have technology review. The problem is, once it gets to be started, technology gets on a roll, and you get all these people who are saying, we are not going to ban this because we need this. This is too big now to stop. Too big to stop. What happens if there's Fukushima and Chernobyl, and basically now this new information that should have been introduced, and it probably was introduced at the time, but totally disregarded. See, I introduced a plan for world peace back in 2003 before the Iraq War. And our government, hey, we're not going to listen. This has gone too far to stop. Okay? We already have our ships ready to go. I'm not going to listen to this. It's too far to stop. What happens if it's too far to stop, and it has to be stopped because it's an existential threat? Okay, so we just keep adding existential threats to our experience. We have climate change. We have a global genocide that is devolving. We have all of these big problems like our food supply. We have a global pandemic that's wiping my life off. We have to come up with plans that address the root cause of the problem and all the steps of the planning stage, including all the glitches part of it. When you come up with a plan, you have a crisis. And then on the opposite side of that, you have the crisis in the family. And they're together. Crisis in the family is the crisis. We're the family of man. And we have a plan on the opposite side of that. So this crisis that we have is coming from this misunderstanding someplace where somebody is not listening, somebody is not paying attention, somebody has come up with a solution that doesn't address the root cause of the problem. How about instead of coming up with a nuclear power against Japan, that they had introduced an idea that and used it and said, we have a weapon now that can wipe you out. We are developing this, and we can wipe you off the face of the planet, and we do not want to unleash this. Okay, is it in the best interest of the Japanese to understand that? Does it have to be kept secret to the point where, how about coming up the first requirement for conflict resolution? That's the next step in the planning process, is that everybody has to be considered equal. Under universal law, how about introducing universal law, and that everybody's equal based on universal law in the planning process? Okay, now what I'm saying is this, that technology review has to be something that happens as part of the mental process, opening up for debate, talking about it, listening to everybody. I'm going to tell you why nuclear power has to be banned based on universal law. Not just the planning process, but universal law. There is the spiritual, science and spirituality actually lean on each other like this. They say the same thing. It's hard to understand, let's say, the unified field theories out there, and Albert Einstein and all these men like Stephen Hawking, they're looking for the unified field theory, and they're so intelligent, and how could anybody think of anything like that? But so here you have science, and science is so scientific, it has to prove things, and it has to do this, it has to go through the scientific method. Okay, on the other side of it is religion. So if you have the unified field theory, what about thinking of the unified field theory as God? The theologians have already found the unified field theory. We know it as God. And then you have to find out who God is and why God exists. And when you look at one, it explains the other. This one explains this, and this one explains this as part. How about if you include in the scientific method the theological aspect of this too? And then you have to look at who God is and where religion fits and all of these ideas. And you have to look where science fits and where everything fits. Okay, we have a universe, and it's based on universal law. But we also have so we have the scientific aspect of it in universal law, but then we have every atom is a universe. There is a God within the God within the God. So when you are using nuclear power to destroy an atom, you're actually destroying a universe. Every atom is a universe when you break it apart. So what happens is this, under universal law, the backlashes against it are that you potentially say our universe, our atom, where we are in the bigger universe known as God, is going to be destroyed. God is a creative substance. God has a creative and a nurturing nature. God doesn't destroy anything. We destroy our own selves. And several civilizations before mankind got on the planet have destroyed themselves, you could say. How did they do that? There's no way of knowing. There's just what we've learned from spiritual understandings. So if we are looking at this and we're saying, the scientific community is saying, we don't want to listen, it's gone too far, we're not going to listen to you, when nuclear power is here to stay, we're not going to get rid of it. Okay, now, at what point in time, when it can't pass security issues, then it dies. That's when everything dies. When you can't defend yourself at the point of security, then you hit your end-of-life crisis. So how about if Chernobyl and Fukushima and all the devastation that came from both of those places? Now, some people have said that Chernobyl has come back and things like that, and that it's not as bad as it seems. It is bad as it seems because it's being used to do it. Now, you look at the sun, for example, that's not our responsibility. That is part of the Creator's responsibility, what is happening there. we don't know the full nature of God yet and how the sons come about. We do know, this is what we've learned, and I've learned, is that there is a God within the God within the God. In fact, I was given a vision one time about the God within the God within the God, and all the way to the end of that, then the Prime Universe. I wrote a book called The Prime Universe Speaks, that there is the God within the God within the God, all the way back. If you look at the dimensions as a point and a line and a three-dimensional object and a time and all that stuff, that's not right. You can draw it in geometry. You can draw a picture of a line, a point, and a thing like that, but that's not how the dimensions work in terms of it's a different kind of dimension. This is the idea of our evolution and where we're going to end up. Let's say the end of the rainbow, and that's why my bookstore is called On the Rainbow Peace Store, because it talks about where we're starting out on one end in the fifth dimension. The rainbow comes up, and then at the far end is where the end of our evolution, and that's what my books are about. Okay, I'm going to share with you these books. They're still in the amateur quality stage yet, and I'm working with my own people to introduce this information, and then they can take it and they can explain things better to, like, the scientific community. That's what the tech team is supposed to be doing, is explaining some of these spiritual ideas, bridging spirituality and technology. Now, I'm going to just give you a little bit of a hint too. Iran is pretty interesting country, because that is a country that is scientific and yet their government is a religious-based government. It's like it has a way of bringing together technology and spirituality. And one of our inventions is going to be offered to Iran, because they can bridge this idea in their society. It's for them, it's a small step to understanding this. We can work with the spiritual part of it and the technological part of it, introducing information, the international government will, and then they can bridge that idea fairly easily. And I'm not saying that their theologians understand the full nature of God. Nobody does right now. I'm a prophet, and I talk to God, and we can ask questions, and that's one of the things that, by leaving the prophets out and saying we don't want to listen to the prophets, well, maybe there is a reason we should be listening to the prophets, because the prophets can explain things that other people can't. We can go bypass things. We can solve problems that other people can't. In fact, that's kind of what happened a long time ago in Greece with the Oracle of Delphi. The idea of, if you're a leader, are you going to go and listen to the oracle and figure out how to solve problems? Are you going to listen? Who are you going to listen to? Who is the person you're going to listen to when you're looking for a solution? So we're going to call for a technology review, that if under universal law, if you destroy an atom, you destroy a universe, and you're breaking universal law. So we are calling for a ban on nuclear power, and we're also calling for a ban on undersea mining because of the hot spots and wiping life off the planet. There's two existential threats that maybe our governments didn't understand. Okay, so but at the same time, our plan has to solve these problems. If we're calling for a ban, we're also calling for a ban at the end of using oil-based products and burning them in internal combustion engines. And one of our future projects that we're going to introduce is a chemical formula that turns oil into fine products, fine silken products, like a fine fabric, that will enable a oil-based economy, country with an oil-based economy, to maintain its economy, the level of its economy, by using it for a different purpose. Something that only needs a tiny little bit of oil, and something like self-sustaining for the economy. Okay, now, so we have to ban these existential threat ideas, and because the oil is necessary in the earth. And then what we're going to do is, these are 3 bans that we're introducing, and we're overview ideas, technological review. Right now, our plan has the cultural support of people from 87 countries. That's why this is important, is because by opening it up for debate, those people are aware of the plan and they're willing to talk about it. Now, they don't have to talk about it in the media. They don't have to do it on Facebook or anything. They can just talk about it and be aware of it and support the idea. Some of them might not even remember they signed up. But at the same time, it's there, and the idea, the seed has been planted, and that's what's important, is to like, share, and subscribe, but most of all, share with your family and friends. Talk about this idea. We'll go into this idea of the God within the God within the God and universal law. I introduced universal law into the U.S. legal system, but whenever you introduce a new idea, all those people who are dependent on the existing structure, the people who are grabbing for power, and they're saying, we don't want to allow people to have the voice in their government because we can't win any elections because we really don't have any plans. The Republican Party at this point in time should really come up with a really good plan instead of trying to suppress voters. That is something that goes against constitutional law and universal law. It's one of our rights, universal rights, our unalienable rights, to have a voice in our government, and to deny that, the Republican Party is asking to be collapsed and just become part of history. But there is a way to solve this problem when you have this idea, is to evolve to the higher level by looking at these ideas, by coming up with better plans and addressing the plans. So when all of these glitches are coming up, like Chernobyl and Fukushima, and things getting worse again, and causing problems again, and they're watching it, it's time to look at things. If the cell phones are a thing of the past, what can replace cell phones? But they're all over the place. I don't have a cell phone, and in fact, I was given one by somebody who thought that I was desperate for one, and I never even opened up the package. Okay, so anyway, it's like I don't believe in cell phones because of the need for protecting the oceans. I would rather protect the oceans, and our organization is going to have an ocean symposium right out here in this town, and we're going to, as soon as that's our plan, is to invite all the experts on the oceans to come to this town and be part of the symposium, and then they will help to establish the Department of the Oceans when we talk about it at the conference in Europe. Okay, so what do you think? Is that something that we should do? Is this something where you have your hands over your ears and you don't want to listen to it? How are you going to solve the glitches of your plan? Okay, so we just open it up for debate, and we just let everybody talk about it and decide for themselves what's going on. And we introduce information, and we let people talk about it, and if they don't like it or they do like it, can they come up with a better idea? Okay, that's where we are in the planning process now. I ask you to like, share, and subscribe, and thanks for stopping by. Share this with other people. This is important.